The next type of margin trading is called a short selling. Okay, you short a stock, short selling. And short selling can also be called margin, trading on margin, because you are also borrowing something. But instead of borrowing money, you are borrowing shares to sell. So short selling involves today you're gonna borrow shares from a broker. The broker have those shares on the behalf of other clients. Other clients invest in the brokers for their shares, and the brokers hold those shares that can lend it to you. Okay, and then after you borrow the shares, you sell up front. So when you sell the stock, you get a cash right away. Okay, you get cash right away, but the thing is, the brokers are not dumb. They want you to put some of your own money as a collateral, as deposit. And so that also means you will need to deposit your own cash first before you are allowed to borrow from the broker. And then later on, if the stock price drops, you will need to sell the shares. You will need to buy the shares back, hopefully at a lower price. All right, and then you will return shares to the broker you borrow from. Okay, so if the share price drops, you buy at a lower price and return the shares to the brokers, then you're done. And that's how you make money. If you are unfortunate, then if the price increases and you buy it back with higher price, you suffer a loss. So in this practice of short selling, we are doing some calculations here. Okay, so this slide basically is telling you what it has to take to sell short. And right here, that's the numerical example raised by the textbook. So you believe the stock price is overpriced and you want to short sell it. Okay, and a short sell basically short selling allows profit from price decline. All right, so let me just read through this for you. So decide to sell 1,000 shares short at $80. You have posted 50% margin as required. If stock price dropped to 70 per share, what will be the percent margin on your account? So if you sell short up front, so you will receive $8,000. So that's $80 times 1,000 shares, and 50% of the sales will be your own cash. All right, so that's basically means you not only receiving the 8,000 proceeds from selling short the stock, but also you need to put down your own money, 50% of how much average stock you sell. So that's going to add, instead of a subtract, that's going to add to $12,000. And then you will need to observe the later price. So if the later price drops to $70, then your position will be 12,000 minus 7,000 in total. So that's going to be your overall proceeds. And then divided by the stock value at that time. So that's going to be your percentage on margin. Okay, so let me just do the practice right here. So let me consolidate the writing here. Okay, and then get some space. All right, so right now the current price is $80, and the shares sold short is 1,000. Oops. Okay, and then you need to figure out what is the later price. So the later price here is $70. All right, dollar here. Okay, and the margin requirement is a 50%. And you also need to get the own cash, own equity deposit. Okay, so that is going to be the current stock value shares times price, and then times the margin requirement as B11. All right, so you need to put $40,000 of your own money. Okay, and then you will need to get the own percentage equity later. Okay, so this is, you're gonna add the $80 times 1,000. I hate this, so let me just okay, do the arrangement. It equals to 80 plus times the 1,000, okay, times, sorry, plus the own equity, and then minus $70, the later price, times the shares involved divided by parenthesis later price times the shares involved. Okay, and this has to be in percentage. Okay, so what you see here is if the stock price dropped to 10%, then your own equity actually increases to 71% from 50%. All right, so what happens if the stock price increase? So the later price, let's say it increased to 100, from 80 to 100. Then you can see that your own equity drops from a 50%, the original requirement, down to 20%. Do you borrow money in this case? No, you borrow shares. All right, so let me recoup this. Okay, and the next thing is I want you to calculate the stock return. And it's going to be pretty easy. You use the later price divided by the earlier price minus 1. Okay, so if the stock price goes this much, goes down by 12.5%, then how much you would make. All right, so this one is kind of hard to calculate. You will need to get your own return. All right, so it is to get your own return, it is pretty easy. So you can just put the stock own return divided by the 50% trading margin, but you will need to add a negative sign in front of it. So when the stock price dropped by negative 12.5%, you will make a positive 25% return. So that's one way to do it, and the orthodox way is to use the whatever money you made divided by how much ever you invested. So you deposit $40,000 of your own money, and how much do you make? So when you sell short up front, you get $80 per share times 1,000 shares, and when you return the shares, you need to first buy it at $70 later, okay, times 1,000. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. Or you can just use the price difference, 80 minus 70, okay, 80 minus 70 times the number of shares, and then divided by your own deposit. So you will also get a 25%. So this is how you make a profit from short selling. And if the stock price increased to 100, then you actually suffer loss. Stock return is positive, your return is negative and doubled. And if the margin requirement is 100%, then your own return is just like the negative stock return. If the margin requirement is 20%, let's say 25%, then your own return is 4 times, quadruple of the stock return, but negative. If it is 40%, then this is your amount of own return. Okay, so let me just recoup to the margin requirement. And there's also a margin call. Okay, we call that, that's from a maintenance margin. Okay, the maintenance margin, and that is based on and let's say this is 25% based on the Federal Reserve's policy, and you can use GoSeek to find what would be the stock price that lead your own equity as a percentage to get to 28%. So right now the default setting is $70. So you are above water and you are making money. But what will make this $71.4% to drop down to 25%? So what will be the later price that caused that change? Of course, it has to be higher than $80. Let's say it's 85. You can see that your equity percentage dropped to 40%, but that's not low enough for the broker to call the margin. All right. So what about if it's 100? So, and I think this is a little too far away. And what about 90? Okay. Well, still it's above the margin call. All right. And again, you can solve this using what if analysis, GoSeek. And you want this own equity to be 25%. And you're gonna change the later price as the adjuster. Okay, and then you hit OK, so you will have the number solved. So this basically is showing you if the stock price increase all the way to $96, then your own equity will be 25% as a percentage of the total position. In that case, you will face a margin call. The broker will not let the price increase above this 95.98. They will just call you on margin. They will force you to liquidate the stock. They will force you to buy back the shares with your own money, even though that makes you lose 40% of your money. Okay? All right, so let me also do it in a mathematical way. It's called a margin call price. All right, so what do we do it? So you can just take a look at this formula. So you will see that it is 8,000 plus 4,000 divided by 1,000 P minus 1. Okay, that will be equalized to 25%. And then you solve for P. All right, so from the textbook, you will see that this is how you solve for the margin requirement. To get the margin call, you're going to equalize the right-hand side. Instead of 71%, you're going to equalize it to 25%, the margin requirement percentage, and then you solve backward for the price P. All right, so P is a price here in your formula. And if I just use a mathematical formula, if you follow my way, that's going to be much easier. So you will need to use the $80 price, all right, times 1 plus the margin requirement of 50%. So that means you're going to get 150% of $80 up front, so that's $120. And then you're going to divide it by 1 plus the margin requirement of 25%. Sorry, that's called a maintenance margin. So this is how you get the margin call price. And if I put a $96 right here, you can see the result is actually more accurate to 25%. The previous one was solved based on GoSeek of what if analysis, and this one is just simply based on the mathematical formula. And you're going to need it for your quiz study, and you're going to need it for your final exam. So now let me just recoup this setting, change the later price back to $70, and this is the number provided by the textbook. Okay, so in the next spreadsheet, I want you to simulate different prices. So for the later price after you conducted a short selling, let's say I want it to range from $30 all the way to $31 with $80 the current price as the middle point. Okay, so starts from 30 and end at 130. All right, so these are the prices. Okay, and then you will need to calculate the stock return first. All right, you know that the later price is 30, the earlier price is 80 minus 1, so this is not $63.63, it's actually $62.5. And then you will need to generate all of the stock returns for the entire column. Okay, and to get your own return, it is fairly straightforward. You just use the negative of the stock return divided by the margin requirement of 50%. And replicate the same analysis, same calculation for all the other sales. All right. To get your own return in a tougher way or the orthodox way, then you will need to get the stock value later, okay, based on the later price. So you have a $30 per share times 1,000, okay, so the $30,000 you sell up front. And then you will also need to get the deposit margin, okay, your own deposit, own cash. So this is $80 times 1,000 shares. That's your stocks sold upfront times 50%. So this is how much you'll have. Okay. You'll sell shares upfront. So let's just call it short upfront. So you borrow the $1,000 shares. You borrow the 1,000 shares and you sell upfront at $80 per share. Okay, so that's gonna make you $80,000 in total. And then you can calculate your own return. So you receive $80,000 and later on you need to pay to buy the shares, 1,000 shares back at whatever price. Okay, and the net profit will be divided by your own deposit. That's gonna be your return in percentage. Alrighty, so you can see that these two columns would be the same. So you can either use your stock return divided by the margin requirement, or you perform a calculation like this. You use the money you receive upfront minus the money you pay to buy back the shares later, divided by your own deposit to get your own return in percentage. And for your own margin, okay, investor's own margin is a percentage margin. So this is gonna need you to, all right, use the deposit plus the money you receive upfront, okay, minus the later price, okay, all right, stock value divided by the later stock value. All right, so right here you have a 300%. And then as the stock price jump to increases, you can see that your percentage is actually shrinking.